Front, compensating port. Back, a small hole placed in a master cylinder to permit fluid to return to the reservoir. Releases pressure when the piston returns to the released position. Fluid can flow back into the reservoir through the compensating port. Front, dropping brake pedal. Back, an automotive condition in which the brake pedal slowly moves all the way to the floor when steady pressure is applied to it. This condition usually manifests itself when a vehicle is at a stoplight. Front, ABS channels. Back, a single system of ABS sensor input and hydraulic output. There are a maximum of 4 channels, one for each wheel. 1, 2, and 3 channel systems are also used. GW. Front, the parking brakes are properly adjusted if the brakes are fully applied after the control has moved to what level of its available travel. Back, 1/3 to 2/3. 1/3 to 2/3 is the industry standard. Front, bleeder screw. Back, a device that allows air to be removed from the hydraulic brake system. Front, pulsation. Back, a type of vibration usually felt as a side-to-side motion in the steering wheel, or an up-and-down motion in the brake pedal, or both, when the brakes are applied. Front, pushrod length. Back, the overall length of the pushrod that sticks out from the vacuum booster. Front, brake rotor. Back, disc-shaped component that revolves with hub and wheel. The lining pads are forced against the rotor to provide a friction surface for the brake system, so as to slow or stop a vehicle, also called rotor. Front, brake hoses. Back, flexible hose that connect solid brake lines to wheel brake assemblies. Front, the ABS anti-lock brake system. Amber light does not go off after the engine is started. Technician A says a parking brake not fully released could be the cause. Technician B says when this happens the brakes will operate like a normal non-ABS brake system. Who is right? Back, B only. If the amber light is on, it indicates an ABS fault and the system will revert to regular brake operation without ABS. Technician A is wrong because the parking brake only affects the red brake light, not the amber. Front, dragging brakes. Back, an automotive condition in which the brakes remain partially applied when the brake pedal is released. The brakes will overheat if the vehicle is driven very far. Front, brake pull. Back, an automotive condition in which the brakes, tires, suspension, or alignment may cause front wheel pull to one side during braking. 2. Occurs when the vehicle pulls suddenly to the left or right as the brake pedal is depressed. It indicates the brakes may be out of adjustment. Front, master cylinder. Back, the part of the hydraulic brake system in which system pressure is generated. Front. 2 technicians are explaining how to service an aluminum metal matrix composite alloy rotor when resurfacing is not used. Technician A says servicing these rotors is slightly different from cast iron rotors. Technician B says you must remove the dark transfer layer on the rubbing surface anytime the rotor is removed. Who is right? Back. B only. Technician A is right because these rotors are serviced slightly different from cast iron rotors. Technician B is wrong because dark transfer layer on the rubbing surface does not harm rotor performance and should not be removed unless the rotor needs to be machined due to being warped. Front, grooving. Back, also referred to as scoring. Deep cuts in the rotor surface as a result of worn linings, foreign object damage, or sand. Front, self-adjusters. Back, used as drum brakes expand as the brake shoes wear, so the gap between the shoes and the drum remains roughly constant throughout the life of the shoes. Teeth on the gear of the self-adjusters engage with a metal tab when you apply the brakes. As the brakes wear, the metal tab turns the gear and causes the self-adjusters to unscrew and expand. Front, Technician A says silicon-based brake fluid may be used in an ABS anti-lock brake system. Technician B says when an ABS wheel speed sensors fails, you must replace both wheel sensors on that axle. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Technician A is wrong because silicon fluid or DOT5 is not compatible with DOT2 or DOT3 and is primarily used in military and special applications because it has no affinity for water. Technician B is wrong because wheel sensors are not matched. Which form of front, which form of back pressure? Pressure bleeding uses equipment that provides a continuous supply of brake fluid under pressure to the master cylinder reservoir. It may also include small diameter hoses that attach to the bleeder screws to recover all of old brake fluid. Since this method takes a bit of work to connect the equipment to the vehicle, it is best used when the hydraulic system needs a full flush. A is wrong because manual bleeding requires another technician to operate the brake pedal while the main tech opens and closes the bleeder screws to allow the air out of the hydraulic system. However, you must stop to add fluid to the master cylinder where you do not with a pressure bleeder. B and D are wrong because you must also stop to add fluid to the master cylinder. Front, dual servo brake. Back, a drum brake design where the primary, forward-facing brake shoe exerts force against the secondary, rearward-facing brake shoe during braking while the vehicle is traveling forward. Front, master cylinder reservoir. Back, area that stores an extra supply of brake fluid. It may be cast as part of the housing, or removable plastic part. Normally has two sections or compartments. Front. Technician A says Tinnerman nuts used to hold the brake drum on should be reinstalled. Technician B says a drum should be removed inside a sealed vacuum enclosure or washed with water or solvent to prevent possible asbestos dust from being released into the air. Who is right? Back. B only. This is a mandated practice to prevent exposure to asbestos. Technician A is wrong because new vehicles have Tinnerman nuts clips, also called speed nuts, on the stud when the vehicle is being assembled. These thin sheet metal nuts keep the brake drum from falling off during shipping and handling prior to installation of the rear wheels. The Tinnerman nuts can be discarded because they are not needed after the vehicle leaves the assembly plant. Front. The front brake rotors and pads are being replaced on a vehicle equipped with a TCS traction control system and electronic stability control system (ESC). Technician A says the yaw rate and deceleration sensor should be recalibrated. Technician B says the new rotors should be indexed to the hub using a dial indicator for the least amount of runout. Who is right? Back. B only. This is the standard process by many OEMs when a new rotor is installed. Technician A is wrong because recalibration is not required for these sensors. Front. On a car with single-piston floating caliper disc brakes, the disc brake pad between the caliper piston and the rotor is badly worn. The other brake pad is slightly worn. Technician A says excessive rotor runout could be the cause. Technician B says insufficient clearance between the pads and caliper slider could be the cause. Who is right? Back. B only. Insufficient clearance between the pads and caliper slider causes the slider not to move and only applies one brake pad, causing only that pad to wear. Technician A is wrong because excessive rotor runout will cause brake pulsations with no effect on wear. Front. Wheel speed sensors. Back. Permanent magnet sensor used to detect wheel speed by monitoring the movement of the tone wheel. Front. Technician A says some noise and brake pedal pulsation is normal when the ABS anti-lock brake system actuator is operating. Technician B says the ABS anti-lock brake system warning light should come on and remain on for approximately 3 seconds after the key is turned to the on position. Who is right? Back. Both A and B. Both technicians are correct. Tech A is right because noise and brake pedal pulsation are a normal part of ABS operation. Tech B is right because the ABS warning light should come on and remain on for approximately 3 seconds after the key is turned to the on position. Front, brake shoe adjusters. Back, device that maintains the correct drum to lining clearance as the brake linings wear. Front, bleeder wrench. Back, a wrench used in the bleeding of the hydraulic brake system. Front, the master cylinder fluid level is low on a vehicle. Technician A says the cause could be a brake additive adjustment. Technician B says that one of the brake systems has failed. Who is right? Back. Both A and B. Both technicians are correct. Tech A is right because if the brakes are adjusted to allow too much clearance between the lining and the drum, the brake shoes will have to travel further to contact the brake drum, resulting in more fluid going to the wheel cylinder to compensate for the travel distance. Tech B is right because when one brake system fails, the other system provides fluid for the remaining brakes, resulting in a lower fluid level in that chamber with no fluid in the failed chamber. Front, an ABS anti-lock brake system. Warning light that comes on as soon as the vehicle begins to move indicates. Back, bad wheel speed sensor. The wheel sensor is the only moving part listed as an answer option. Front. Two technicians are describing master cylinder characteristics. Technician A says it is not normal to see fluid movement in the reservoir when the brake pedal is depressed. Technician B says a defective master cylinder can cause the brake pedal to slowly sink to the floor when depressed. Who is right? Back. B only. A defective master cylinder can cause the brake pedal to slowly sink to the floor when depressed. If fluid is leaking internally past the seals, Technician A is wrong because it is normal to see fluid movement in the reservoir when the brake pedal is depressed. Front, accumulator. Back, gas-charged cylinder or chamber used to store brake fluid, used in anti-lock and hydro-boost brake systems. Front, brake light switch. Back, a switch used to operate the brake lights, installed on the brake pedal linkage. Front, the primary brake circuit fails due to an external leak at the rear section of dual master cylinder. Technician A says you will notice a spongy lower than normal brake pedal and reduced braking power. Technician B says the brake pedal will grab higher than normal. Who is right? Back. Of only, brake fluid leaks cause air in the system, which lowers the brake pedal, making it spongy with reduced braking power. Technician B is wrong because air in the system will not cause any early brake engagement or grabbing higher than normal. Front. A 3-channel ABS anti-lock brake system equipped vehicle has a wheel lock-up on braking with no amber warning light or DTC diagnostic trouble codes set. Technician A says contaminated linings on both rear axles could be the cause. Technician B says a defective front wheel speed sensor could be the cause. Who is right? Back. Of only, contaminated linings on both axles could still have the same wheel speed in a 3-channel system and not normally be detected by the ABS. Technician B is wrong because a front wheel sensor would set a code and put on the amber light. Front, brake fluid. Back, a special fluid compound used in hydraulic brake systems. It must meet exacting specifications, such as resistance to heating, freezing, and thickening. Front, the disassembly of a caliper is being described. Technician A says that after piston removal and a thorough cleaning and inspection, a new square-cut O-ring should be installed in the groove of the caliper bore. Technician B says the caliper piston is lubricated with clean transmission fluid and then pushed into the caliper bore. Who is right? Back. Of only, Technician A states the standard procedure used by all manufacturers. Technician B is wrong because you lubricate the caliper piston with clean brake fluid, not transmission fluid. Front, hydraulic buster. Back, a brake booster that uses power steering fluid pressure to provide assistance in brake actuation, also called hydro boost. Front, primary brake shoe. Back, brake shoe installed facing the front of the vehicle. Front, out of round. Back, condition where a cylinder or other round object, such as a drum, has greater wear at one point in its diameter. 2. A piston, shaft, journal, etc., in which diameter is greater in one direction than another, forming an egg shape. Condition where a cylinder. Back. Condition where a front, integral drum. Back. A parking brake system that applies the service brake shoes mechanically. Front. Two technicians are describing the replacement of the rear drum brake linings. Technician A says you should hone the wheel cylinder after replacing the wheel cylinder seals. Technician B says you clean and lube the backing plate, install shoes and hold down springs, self-adjuster mechanism and return springs. Who is right? Back. B only. Only technician B is correct. It is the standard procedure used for lining replacement. Technician A is wrong because many wheel cylinders now use a barongized surface which would be removed if honed. Front. Refinishing. Back. It is not always necessary to refinish brake rotors when doing routine brake maintenance such as replacing brake shoe and lining assemblies. Refinish rotors only under the following circumstances. 1. There is brake pedal pulsation. 2. There are heat spots, cracks, or excessive scoring. Front. Pulling brakes. Back. An automotive condition in which the brakes cause the vehicle to veer to the right or left when the brakes are applied. Front. Pressure bleeding. Back. The use of a pressure brake bleeder which allows for brake bleeding to be performed efficiently by a single technician. Front. Turning. Back. Also referred to as cutting or machining. The removal of a layer of metal from a rotor or drum to restore the surface finish. Front. Vacuum bleeding. Back. A brake bleeding process that uses a special suction pump that attaches to the bleeder screw. The pump creates a low-pressure area at the bleeder screw, which allows atmospheric pressure to force brake fluid through the system when the bleeder screw is opened. It requires only one technician. Front. Technician A says a pull to the right during braking could be caused by a defective proportioning valve. Technician B says a pull to the left could be caused by a seized caliper slider on the right side. Who is right? Back. B only. If the right side caliper is not functioning properly because the slider is seized and the left side is working as designed, the brake application will cause the vehicle to pull to the left because only the left side is working. A defective proportioning valve does not cause a pull but can cause rear brake lockup. Front. Brake shutter. Back. An automotive condition in which when the brake pedal is applied that a shutter is apparent. A shutter can be identified by steering wheel vibration and brake pedal pulsation. Front. Brake vibration. Back. An automotive condition that manifests itself as a chatter, pulsation, or shake in the brake pedal or steering wheel. It happens only when the brake pedal is applied. Brake warning light on. An automotive condition that indicates either an internal leak, master cylinder, or an external leak, brake line, hose, wheel cylinder, in the hydraulic system. Front. Technician A says the red brake warning light can be turned on if a difference in pressure is detected by the proportioning valve. Technician B says the red brake warning light can be turned on if the brake fluid level sensor detected low brake fluid level. Who is right? Back. B only. The brake fluid level sensor is part of the red brake warning light circuit. Technician A is wrong because a defective proportioning valve will not turn on the red brake light. Front. Pressure differential switch. Back. Hydraulic activated switch that monitors fluid pressure in the separate front-rear brake hydraulic circuits. Front. A vehicle comes in with a complaint of excessive pedal travel before the brakes apply. Technician A says the master cylinder pushrod adjustment is incorrect. Technician B says the cause is a faulty residual pressure check valve admitting air. Who is right? Back. B only. Technician A is right because if the master cylinder pushrod is too short there will be a delay in application. Technician B is wrong because a faulty residual check valve will cause a spongy pedal due to the ingress of air. Front. The ABS anti-lock brake system and traction off indicator lights remain on with the engine running. Technician A says to check for ABS or TCS traction control system diagnostic trouble codes. Technician B says you can check for ABS or TCS blink codes by connecting 2 pins of the DLC data link connector. Who is right? Back. Both A and B. Both technicians are correct. Tech A is right because you check for ABS anti-lock brake system or TCS traction control system diagnostic trouble codes when the amber ABS warning lamp or traction off light is on. Tech B is right because on older ABS systems you can check for ABS blink codes by connecting 2 pins of the DLC data link connector. Front. What is the purpose of the colored stripe on the brake hose outer casing? Back. To keep from twisting hose. The colored strip is there to help keep the hose straight, as it should not be twisted. Front. Residual pressure valves. Back. Valves that maintain residual fluid pressure of approximately 10 psi 69 kilopascals to help keep contaminants out of the system. One valve is located in each outlet to the brake lines. Front. Proportioning valve. Back. Valve designed to equalize braking action on vehicles with front disc and rear drum values. Front. A vehicle has a noticeable pull to the left when the brakes are applied using heavy pressure. Technician A says a stuck floating caliper on the left could be the cause. Technician B says an open ABS anti-lock brake system wheel speed sensor could be the cause. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Technician A is wrong because a stuck right caliper will cause a pull to the left. Technician B is wrong because defective wheel sensors do not cause brake pulls. Front. Bench bleeding. Back. A brake bleeding process that removes air from inside the master cylinder. Front. Pressure differential valve. Back. A valve used in a dual brake system to turn on a dash warning light if the pressure drops in either part of the system. Front. Technician A says a steel piston should be cleaned with sandpaper to remove rust. Technician B says brake assembly fluid or clean brake fluid should be used to lubricate the caliper pistons before installing in the caliper. Who is right? Back. B only. Brake assembly fluid or clean brake fluid is the best fluid to use when assembling a caliper. Technician A is wrong because care should be taken when cleaning steel pistons. Use crocus cloth to remove any surface staining. Do not use sandpaper, emery cloth, or any other substance that may remove or damage the chrome surface finish. Front. Backing plate. Back. A metal plate that holds the wheel cylinder, shoes, and other parts inside a drum brake. Front. Hydraulic modulator. Back. Anti-lock brake system that does not have a motor-driven hydraulic pump. It uses movable pistons operated by small electric motors through reduction gears to vary the pressure. Front. The drum brake linings should be at what measurement above the pad backing plate or rivet heads? Back. 0.050 in. 1.3 millimeters. The current industry standard dimension is 0.050 in 1.3 millimeters. Front. Anti-lock brake system, ABS. Back. A computer-controlled system that is part of the base brake system. The system cycles the brakes on and off to prevent wheel lock-up and skidding. Front. Oversize drums. Back. Any used brake drum will show some wear. When manufactured, brake drums are made thick enough to allow for a certain amount of wear in machining. Most brake drums are allowed to be oversized 0.060 in. 1 millimeter. The oversize limit is usually stamped on the face of the brake drum or in the vehicle service manual. Front. Electronic wear indicator. Pad wear indicators have evolved from the standard metal clipper audible sensor to the electronic wear sensor. They both perform the same basic function of warning the driver when the brake pads have worn down enough to require replacement by providing a light for the driver as well. Pad wear indicator. Pad wear indicator. Pad wear back. Pad wear indicator. Front. The front rotor thickness variation, parallelism, is being measured. Technician A says you use a feeler gauge to make the measurement. Technician B says a dial indicator is used to make the measurement. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Both technicians are wrong. A special micrometer or digital readout rotor micrometer is used, which is an accurate tool when measuring a rotor. Both fractional inches and metric millimeters are generally available. Front. ABS control module. Back. A computer that controls the operation of a system, based on sensor inputs, usually less complex than the computer that controls the engine and other vehicle systems. GW. Front. A vehicle with disc drum brakes requires excessive brake pedal effort to stop. The brake pedal is firm when applied. While starting the engine with the brakes applied, the pedal does not go down slightly. Technician A says excessive brake pedal free play could be the cause. Technician B says air trapped in the hydraulic system could be the cause. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Both technicians are wrong because the problem is in the power booster. Excessive free play delays application and air in the hydraulic system will cause a spongy pedal. Front. Technician A says the threads and end caps of the adjusters should be lubricated with lithium grease before being installed. Technician B says star wheel adjusters use the same threads for the left and right sides of the vehicle. Who is right? Back. But only. Technician A is right because the adjusters should be lubricated with synthetic brake grease. Lithium brake grease or anti-seize compound before being installed. Technician B is wrong because star wheel adjusters use different threads, left and right-handed, for the left and right sides of the vehicle. Front. After the replacement of a master cylinder the brakes drag. Technician A says the compensation ports may be blocked. Technician B says excessive pedal free play could be the cause. Who is right? Back. But only. Technician A is right because blockage of the compensation ports will not allow the fluid to return to the master cylinder reservoir and thereby cause the brakes to remain applied and drag. Excessive free travel cause brake lag, not drag. Front. On a bearing that has been shock loaded, the race cup of the bearing can be dented. What is this type of bearing failure called? Back. Brinelling. Brinelling is defined as indentations in the race caused by impact loads or vibrations. Front. Barrel-shaped drum. Back. A barrel-shaped drum will be rounded in the middle. Brakes often wear at the outside edge, leaving a bell-shaped drum. Front. Accumulator piston compressor. Back. A special tool similar to a C-clamp, used to compress and gradually release spring pressure in an accumulator. Front. The rear brakes lock up during a regular brake application. Technician A says a defective pressure differential valve could be the cause. Technician B says the metering valve could be the cause. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Both technicians are wrong. The pressure differential valve will not cause a lockup, it turns on the brake light when there is a difference in pressure. The metering valve, if defective, will cause a front brake lockup. Front. The front rotor needs to be replaced, so the caliper must be removed. What should you do with the caliper after removing the retaining bolts? Back. Hang it on a piece of wire. Hanging the caliper on a piece of wire preserves the brake line and puts it out of the way for the repair without disturbing the hydraulic system. All of the other choices are not appropriate or correct. Front. Pedal action test. Back. A diagnostic test to determine changes in brake pedal action or feel. Front. The rear wheels lock up during hard braking. Technician A says a defective pressure differential valve could be the cause. Technician B says a defective proportioning valve could be the cause. Who is right? Back. B only. A defective proportioning valve will cause rear wheel lockup during hard braking. Technician A is wrong because the pressure differential valve will not cause a lockup, it turns on the brake light when there is a difference in pressure. Front, pushrod height. Back, the distance a pushrod extends beyond the booster housing. Front, pushrod height gauge. Back, a gauge that measures how far the pushrod sticks out of the brake booster. Front, hold down spring. Back, a spring tension mechanism that holds a brake shoe against a backing plate. Front, brake warning light switch. Back, dashboard indicator that warns of low brake system hydraulic pressure. Front, the brake drum discard diameter is. Back, stamped or cast into the drum. When manufactured, brake drums are made thick enough to allow for a certain amount of wear in machining. However, there is a limit to how much metal can be worn or machined off a drum. Most brake drums are allowed to be oversize, 0.60 in, 1 mm. However, this limit may vary. The oversize limit is usually stamped on the face of the brake drum or in the vehicle service manual. To determine the drum size, use a brake drum micrometer. The drum size must never exceed the specified limit. Doing so could lead to a catastrophic failure. Front, a vehicle with four-wheel disc brakes has a brake squeal. Technician A says a defective proportioning valve could be the cause. Technician B says disc brake squeal is often caused by movement of the disc brake pad during braking. Who is right? Back, B only. Disc brake squeal is often caused by movement of the disc brake pad during braking. To reduce disc brake squeal, all mating surfaces of the brake should be clean and lubricated. Always use OEM recommended clips and anti-squeal shims. To further reduce noise, do not machine a disc brake rotor more than absolutely necessary. Technician A is wrong because the proportioning valve only affects brake lockup and is not used on four-wheel disc brakes, only on disc drum combinations. Front. Two technicians are discussing the machining of a brake rotor. Technician A says OEM, original equipment manufacturers like GM and others prefer the off-car form of rotor machining. Technician B says to check that the rotor is mounted correctly, loosen the retaining nut, turn the rotor 1/2 turn 180 degrees and retighten the nut and make another scratch cut. Who is right? Back, B only. Technician B is correct because this is the correct process for on or off-car machining. Technician A is wrong because OEMs prefer the on-car form of rotor machining. Front. What type of material is used to repair brake lines? Back. Double-walled steel tubing. Only double-walled steel tubing can be used for brake line repair. All others are unacceptable. Front. Anti-rattle clips. Back. One or more metal components designed to keep brake pads from vibrating and rattling. Front. The brakes are being bled on an older vehicle equipped with a quick take-up valve in the master cylinder. Technician A says the quick take-up valve must be depressed during brake bleeding. Technician B says the brakes on this vehicle cannot be bled. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Both technicians are wrong. The brakes on quick take-up systems use the same bleeding procedure as those without this valve. There are no differences. Front. The front wheel bearings are being adjusted. Technician A says you torque the adjusting nut to a specified torque and back off the nut till it lines up with the hole and install the cotter pin. Technician B says backing off the castle nut will cause the bearing to overheat. Who is right? Back. B only. You torque an adjusting nut to a specified torque and back off the nut till it lines up with the hole and install the cotter pin. Technician B is wrong because backing off the castle nut will not cause the bearing to overheat. Front. Brake lathe. Back. A device used to remove the glazed and scored outer layer from rotors and drums. Front. A master cylinder has been replaced. In an overall bleeding sequence, which part should be bled first? Back. Master cylinder. The master cylinder is always bled first and then the wheels in order from the one farthest from the master cylinder. Front. Accumulator pressure retention test. Back. A diagnostic test conducted to determine if the accumulator is defective. Front. With the brakes applied on a vehicle with power brakes, the pedal moves down slightly when the engine is started. Technician A says the cause could be a leaking power brake booster diaphragm. Technician B says the cause could be a stuck closed residual check valve in the hose from the intake manifold to the power brake booster. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Both technicians are wrong because this is how power brakes are supposed to operate. Front. Technician A says brake hoses should rarely go bad and do not require frequent inspection. Technician B says hose swelling is normal and does not require service. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Both technicians are wrong. Brake hoses do fail after time and hose swelling is not normal and does require service. Front. Technician A says a vehicle can fail a parking brake performance test if the linings are contaminated. Technician B says worn-out service brakes will not affect parking brake performance. Who is right? Back. But only. Technician A is correct because contaminated lining will drastically reduce stopping distance and gripping power. Technician B is wrong because vehicles with rear drum brakes use the rear brakes as the parking brake. Therefore worn-out brakes will affect parking brake operation. Front. Wear indicator. Back. A small piece of flat spring steel attached to one of the brake pads. As the pad linings wear down, the end of the spring contacts the spinning rotor, notifying the driver of the need for brake service. Front. Grabbing brakes. Back. An automotive condition in which the brakes apply too quickly, even with light brake pedal application, making it difficult to stop slowly. Front. Bell mouth drum. Back. Occurs when the open end of the brake drum distorts outward due to high braking temperatures and excessive braking pressures. A bell mouth drum is indicated when the brake shoes are worn at an angle with the low point on the outer edge and the high point at the inner edge. The condition can be verified by measuring the drum at different points too. When a drum has a larger diameter at the open end than at the flange, it is considered bell-mouthed and it prevents full contact with the lining. Front. Brake pedal reserve. Back. The distance measured from the vehicle's floor to the brake pedal when the brakes are applied. Front. Dual servo brake. Back. A drum brake designed where the primary, forward-facing, brake shoe exerts force against the secondary, rearward-facing, brake shoe during braking while the vehicle is traveling forward. Front. A truck with a hydraulic brake booster has a spongy brake pedal feel. Technician A says there may be air in the master cylinder. Technician B says the power steering belt may be slipping. Who is right? Back. But only. Air will always create a spongy pedal. Technician B is wrong because a slipping power steering belt will affect boost with no effect on a spongy pedal. The pedal would be hard. Front. Two technicians are discussing how to remove a caliper piston. Technician A says to use compressed air. Technician B says to use a large C-clamp. Who is right? Back. But only. Use extreme care when removing a caliper piston using compressed air. The pressure applied can force the piston out of the caliper with tremendous force. Front. Technician A says a pulsation felt in the brake pedal during an ABS anti-lock brake system stop indicates there is a problem within the ABS system. Technician B says the ABS amber light comes on during whenever there is wheel slippage. Who is right? Back. Neither A nor B. Technician A is wrong because the pulsation is normal and not a problem. Technician B is wrong because the amber light does not come on unless there is a fault in the ABS system.